Hoofs are on the road, boys, they sing a merry catch. Oh, the sun's at noon and the year's at June and we're driving to the match. Brown-armed peasants in the hay stand still with shaded eye. The village children shout with glee, and mothers leave their work to see as we go driving by. The milkmaid flings a saucy smile, the farmer heaves a sigh. Our horse's music floods the air, and all the world is oh so fair as we go driving by. The hoofs are on the road, boys, hark to their jocund catch. Oh, the sun's at noon and the year's at June and we're driving to the match.
Groombridge, 1982, where the old and the new meet. The ancient half of the village is in Kent, the modern in Sussex. Once border feuds were fierce, but now the whole community is coming together with one aim, to revisit the 18th century.
Sussex Weekly Advertiser, September the 2nd, 1782. On Friday se'nnight, a game of cricket which had been pending for 3 days between 11 gentlemen of Tunbridge Wells and 11 gentlemen of Groombridge ended in favour of the latter, who won the game by 4 notches only.
200 years on, the challenge has been renewed. Groombridge versus Tunbridge Wells with 1782 costumes and 1782 rules. The research has gone back to the very origins of the game. Cricket historian John Arlott.
As nearly as anybody can guess, and that's all one can say, I would think it was played by shepherd lads. This would place them on the downs of the Weald where the grass was short, cropped grass where the ball would roll along the ground or bounce off it. Then, if they used the wicket gate of the sheepfold as the target for the ball, that would fit in terminologically. I suppose the ball was rolled sheep's wool, probably gummed together with reddle, the red stuff they used to mark sheep, which would account for traditionally the colour of a cricket ball always being red. And if they used the shepherd's crook as a bat, that would account for the curved shape of the bottom.
And where would it have started?
Don't think there's much doubt about that. In the Kent-Sussex Weald. Then I would think it spread very rapidly to Surrey and then on to Hampshire.
And Groombridge would have been a typical village where cricket would have been played?
Yes, absolutely. And played very seriously too. I think that in that period people were much more characters, in quotes, than they are today. The one thing that in common that they have is they're all semi-skilled or skilled. And although the aristocracy backed the sides and probably picked them, they very rarely played because they weren't quite good enough, and this was business. This was £1,000 a shot. So they tend to be small farmers, potters, cobblers, gardeners, skilled with their hands, capable of winning a great deal of money for their bosses.
And even today, all good village teams include craftsmen. In Groombridge, there's the local undertaker. Manctelows have been making Groombridge coffins and Groombridge runs for generations. Frank Manctelow had the idea of the bicentenary match, so he's been made captain for the day. He meets up with teammates Jerry Robson and Eddie Gross to discuss match plans. But as usual, it ends up in another bout of the cricketer's disease. Reminiscing.
This is where it all started. This is where the 1782 match would have been played
On this very ground here?
in the quarter-mile field.
Do you sometimes wish you perhaps lived there?
If I'd lived then, no, because I shouldn't be here now.
There is a story that is told that when my father was playing, this was in the early 1920s, one of the Groombridge members had a glass eye, and he was batting and went for a quick single, and all of a sudden everyone gathered round, was searching in the long grass, and his glass eye had come out, and you know, there was all the players on their hands and knees searching for this glass eye in the middle of the wicket, which they did find in actual fact.
So that first match 200 years ago was played in front of Groombridge Place, an imposing mansion which hosted many a country house cricket match. Built in the 17th century and set in a medieval moat and terraced gardens, it's the epitome of style and elegance. Former foreign correspondent Guy Hadley has written a history of Groombridge cricket.
200 years ago, there were quite a lot of people playing cricket around here. Big houses, big staffs, owners who knew each other, raised teams. All that was going on in a big way.
And they employed their staff on the merit of their cricket, one hears.
Well, yes, the first time when I first arrived in Groombridge myself in 1958, I met an old gardener who told me that when he'd gone for interview for his first job, he was not asked anything about gardening. All he was asked was whether he played cricket. And they ran a team, and he was in on that strength. In 1782, the year of our anniversary by centenary, John Frederick Sackville, 3rd Duke, in July of that year, he raised a team representing Kent and challenged an all-England side for a stake of 1,000 guineas, which in those days was, what, 20, 30,000 today? And he won.
So Kent beat all England?
So Kent beat all England, yeah.
So you're talking about the landed gentry. What about the peasants?
Well, I think the peasants enjoyed the game, and it was a nice change from working whatever they were doing on the estate, because they had to work from dawn till dusk mostly. And I think they thoroughly enjoyed it.
But while their lords and masters were earning all these thousands of pounds, what were they being paid?
I don't think they were paid at all. I think they probably got a barrel of beer when they won, and they may have got the odd guinea sort of dashed across, but I don't think they got any professional payment in the sense that we know it nowadays.
So, in 1782, it was payment in ale for the ordinary player. In 1982, the landed gentry may have disappeared, but nothing much else has changed.
Good evening, gentlemen. Well, thanks for turning up. Wanted to get on this evening and talk about the bicentenary game. I think we've made most of the arrangements, but there are just a few odd wrinkles that we've got to iron out.
John Lee, former captain, now chairman of Groombridge. By day, he troubleshoots for British Rail, and by night, he has to do a little for the cricket club too.
First of all, gentlemen, we seem to have caused a bit of a problem over the selection for the bicentenary game. You'll know dear old Nudger Burr, who played for us for a number of years and did so much work. Because we had more than enough to make up the team, we had to leave some people out, and poor Nudge was one of those that was omitted. He seems to have taken it rather hard, and I'd like to read you the letter I've just recently received from him. It is with regret that I write to inform you that I do not wish to take part in any of the Groombridge Cricket Club bicentenary celebrations. This is not a decision taken lightly, I can assure you, as you well know that for 20 years Groombridge Cricket Club and Nudge were synonymous, which seems to have been overlooked.
It's not sour grapes, insists Nudger. He once clocked 500 working hours on the club ground in just a year, and he feels he deserves more courteous treatment.
It saddens me to realise that I am only remembered as a jester and not as a loyal and trusted worker on behalf of the Groombridge Cricket Club as secretary, groundsman and lastly player. I am sorry that this should all come to pass, and I feel that this whole business has been handled with a singular lack of sensitivity by the present committee as a whole. Criticism of us, gentlemen. Has anyone got any views on this?
He wasn't required to come along and, you know, act his part. Let's face it, you know, we all know that Nudge can act the clown if he so desires. which we all appreciated very much indeed.
You're a very good actor.
Yeah, he was super, you know. He took his cricket seriously, he took his beer drinking seriously, and...
Good singer, too.
Good singer,
Good
yeah,
singer.
yeah, not too bad. Nearly up to their standards.
Jerry, what about the time when you got set alight by our delivery?
Yeah, that was most unfortunate.
Say the least. Tell us
In
about
my
that.
smoking days, I used to use Swan Vestas matches. I went out to bat one day with the matches in this pocket. Facing up to a fastish delivery, I misjudged a bit. Ball went between the bat and the leg. Just took a box of matches and up they went.
I remember seeing smoke pouring out of you. And I think somebody rushed onto the wicket, onto the ground with a bowl of water and chucked it all over you, right?
I've still got the trousers.
Yeah. Did you have to retire, Jerry, or did you keep...
No, I kept going. I was told next ball.
Another scorcher, I suppose.
One of the injuries that I always remember is where Sonny Muddle was keeping wicket. And,
when he got hit in the face.
he got hit in the face when the ball stood up. Yeah. He wore steel-rimmed glasses and the ball hit him smack in the face, and it knocked both the glasses out of the spectacles, and the metal spectacles cut his eyes completely round, you know. And of course there was blood everywhere, and someone shouted out, "You'll be all right for a pint afterwards, won't you, Sonny?" And he shouted back, he said, "Well, it didn't hit me in the throat, did it?"
Now, bowling, on the best authority, was all underarm.
The Groombridge umpire is Bill Leckenby, Yorkshire-born and as such a self-confessed cricket expert. He's made a study of the 18th century game and has been appointed match director, a sort of Lawrence O'Illingworth.
Splendid. Which way around?
This is the front, which is the back.
I should say this.
It's a bit big, isn't it?
You'll get perhaps a cover drive, perhaps a square drive, and the cut. If you read these old books, there's a lot of talk about scoring from the point of the bat, and I take it's that. This thing's coming out here.
I had no grandstand or marquee down by the quarry farm. There was a wealth of leafy tree behind the bowler's arm. There were no scorecards to be had, cushions for folk to hire. Only we saw the butcher's lad bowl at the village squire. Lords on the oval truly mean zenith of hard-won fame. But it was just a village green mothered and made the game.
Do you think the boys are in the right frame of mind for this big match?
Oh, I'm sure they are. I think they're looking forward to it, and they're trying, very trying.
Yeah. What are you going to feed us on, Bill? What are you going to feed us on?
Steak
and
eggs.
Are they training in the right way? I mean, is beer forbidden and women forbidden and that sort of thing?
Curry.
Well, beer's not forbidden.
They've been let out quite a lot.
What do we want? Here now.
Dressing for the match is in the charge of Christine Terry. Dressing for the day is catching. It seems most of Groombridge wants to be in on the act, right down to the very youngest members of the village, including the Alderson family.
There seem to be a lot of people dressing up as gentlemen, but it's nice to see somebody who's going to be a peasant.
Ah, yes. Well, I know my station in life. Yes, I can go around touching my forelock. Well, I could if I had one. It fell out.
And you're going to adopt the proper voice as well, are you?
Oh, I think so. I might do a bit of the old ooh-ah bit, you know, but quite remember how it goes.
It's a real village event, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, Groombridge is a lovely village anyway, very friendly, and everybody mucks in and has a great time when you get an event like this, and they're all coming together for this one.
What do you think of their idea of turning the clock back and doing this costume match?
It's been done before, the period piece, of course. Does set the whole thing in historic perspective, and after all, if they've been playing there for 200 years, there are not many places in the world where any sport at all has been played for 200 years. It makes that village green a very rare and special place, and anything you can do, I think, to recall that history to the young people, the children of the area, is worthwhile. It can make an immense impression.
Match day dawns. Groombridge stirs early, and the locals converge on the village green. It's the social event of the year, just as it was in 1782.
There was virtually no spectator entertainment in those days. People worked, especially on the farms in the country, they tended to work 7 days a week. And when a game took place, well, on the days of the great matches, half the county would be there, and all their hearts with us. And you can imagine this dense multitude ringing the ground. So there's not much doubt they came from far and near to see this.
And they would have been dressed for the occasion?
Well, I'm sure the aristocratic backers would be, and they would have their good lunch with bottles of wine served, but the country people, I suppose, just behaved like country people did anyway. They had their knife and cut the bread and bacon. So it must have been a fairly warm-hearted occasion. The matches went on then, you see, for as many as 3 days.
Excitement mounts. The match begins. The atmosphere is pure Georgian. Everyone looks and feels as if the clock has literally been put back 200 years. 200 years of cricket recorded by historians and poets alike.
Oh, batsman, rise and go and stop the rot, and go and stop the rot. It was indeed a rot. 6 down for 23. The batsman thought how wretched was his lot, and all alone went he. The bowler bared his mighty, cunning arm, his vengeance-wreaking arm, his large yet wily arm, with fearful powers endowed. The batsman took his guard. A deadly calm had fallen on the crowd. Oh, is it a half volley or long hop? A 7th bounce long hop? A fast and fierce long hop that the bowler letteth fly? The ball was straight and bowled him neck and crop. He knew not how nor why. Full sad and slow pavilionwards he walked. The careless critics talked. Some said that he was yorked, a half volley at a pinch. The batsman murmured as he inward stalked. It was the extra inch.
John, how would the cricket have looked in those days? How would they have dressed and so on?
Well, I think, you see, they say Winchelsea's players always wore lace hats. Probably wore frilly shirts, certainly knee breeches, stockings and buckle shoes. About him again it was who said you would, when somebody was hit on the bare legs, there were no pads, of course, you would see the bruise heave under the stocking and the blood come through. And John Wells tore a fingernail off against the buckle of his shoe fielding. Not so custom built, not so easy to move in. And if you're going to carry a tricorn cap and a flounced blouse, knee breeches, you may not move too easily. But that's the way they did play, because we've got, you know, quite authentic engravings of it, of specific matches.
And the umpires and the scorers were all different in those days?
Yes. It's never been proved, but virtually proved, that you had to touch the umpire's bat, the one he leant on, to complete a run. I think that's highly probable. And of course, the scoring was done on a piece of wood in which they cut notches, and one of them is described as cutting the notches with his bread and bacon knife. The village side really came from the village. As with this Groombridge side, 10 of them local men, and the 11th married to a Groombridge girl. Now, that's the way village cricket used to be. It really was an integral part of village life. And when village life changed, so did village cricket.
The church had quite a big say in the way cricket was played too in those days, I think.
I think not a great deal. There was an awful lot played in churchyards because that was the other place where the grass was short. And the parsons often didn't exactly approve of this. And there were one or two cases of people taken to court and fined for playing cricket in the churchyard. But what's slightly later is that famous notice on the door of the church: "Them as don't come to church shan't play cricket," which is a good way of getting a certain amount of attendance around service.
The only thing on the minds of the Groombridge players out on the pitch is to repeat their famous victory of 200 years ago. After early setbacks, Rocket Stevenson starts to fire on all pistons. He's built like an old-time cricketer and certainly would not have been out of place in 1782. Rocket's an estate agent by profession and the Groombridge groundsman, so he knows the terrain well. Heroically, he hits out to all parts of the field and perishes in the attempt to rescue his team. But his swashbuckling 23 is well received.
Well done, Ian. A bit of the saviour there.
Thank you. Yes, it's hard work, even on a cold day.
Yeah. And Frank, before you go in, how do you think the side are doing?
No trouble at all under control, piece of cake.
The captain showing a brave face. But there's no doubt the situation is grave as the undertaker strides to the wicket. If ever there was a captain's innings needed, it's needed now from Frank Manctillo. A couple of bold blows raise the Groombridge hopes. Will this be Manctillo's finest hour? He's closer to the Almighty than most, so will there be divine inspiration? Well, certainly someone seems to be on his side. But Groombridge are all out for 98.
Charlie, your umpire was saying that 98's enough and that he felt that Groombridge were going to win.
Your umpire?
He'll have to go, Charlie.
We weren't very satisfied with him doing the game. There was a blatant stumping there that was not given.
That was me.
Yeah. Well,
did
you pay him or something?
I wasn't out. I was in by a yard.
It's now up to the Groombridge bowlers. Brian Nye bears his cunning arm. The Georgian style certainly seems to be there, and his devious spin beats the bat, and wicketkeeper Rocket too. In the field, sprightly Eddie Gross waits to pounce. The croucher, they call him. His artful misfield lures the batsman to take an extra run. And triumphantly, Eddie gets his man.
Anybody appeal?
Yes, how's that?
How's that?
But Tunbridge Wells have waited a long time for their revenge. An old-time pro has been waiting in the wings. A few lusty blows turn the game and put the villagers firmly in their place. So 200 years of cricket has celebrated. The match of 1782 has been recaptured. This time, Tunbridge Wells win. But Groombridge are already talking of revenge in 2182.